Welcome to the Co-Struction Podcast, a podcast where we try to... What do we do?
We build a world based on 5 randomly generated words from 5 separate lists.
Well, that's not true.
That's inaccurate?
There are 3 lists. There are 3 lists.
What are we even doing?
And we generate usually 6.
I'm Josh Robbins.
This is my first day.
It's also been like 2 weeks since we recorded the last episode because we've all been very busy. But we did, before we started, we sat down and we tried to list out all of the previous stories and worlds we had come up with. And it took us a hot minute to remember them all. But let's talk about what was technically the last story we did, which I believe Linnea came up with the title for Gnomes and Clones.
Yep.
Also, before we continue, we should address that Josh has new shoes.
Okay.
I
was actually talking... No, it's your hair. You're different.
Oh.
You look different.
Oh, yeah, I'm blonde now. Hi.
So he's now just a little bit dumber. But that's okay.
Well, before I had the confidence of a white straight male, now I have the confidence of a blonde white straight male.
Or have a
terrifying prospect.
A K-pop star. The confidence of a K-pop star.
I mean, I'm... Okay. But what I want to talk about Gnomes and Clones, because surprisingly, it was the first movie ever to win a Nobel Peace Prize for our work in bringing the story of the clones to the public. And we're very thankful for the honor that you all have bestowed upon us. And we're here to just get right back on the old horse. What?
Truly.
What? But did we do names? Did we skip names?
I'm Anthony Wilkinson.
I'm Josh Robbins.
Linnea Andersson.
And it's time to, what's our classic catchphrase? It's time to build it.
Raise some worlds.
Build.
We need a catchphrase. It's time to build is good. Okay, let's do it.
It's perfect. That's exactly what we need.
Okay, dope.
So we got the list. The first list is our 2 influences. It's going to generate... We've actually included a couple more things on the list, and now there are 62 items on the list.
Oh, shit.
So let's randomly generate
62.
2 numbers.
First number is...
30. Samurai. That one's fun.
Let's do it.
Samurai and monster. Okay, there's some potential here. So it's like a monster samurai kind of theme, some in between there.
Samurai. Well,
now we have our second list, which are major events. There are 137 of these, and we are going to randomly pick 3. 66, which is Ice Age. 65, which is Heat Wave.
Yes.
And 71, which is censorship.
Oh my
I don't feel like we have to
God.
worry about that one nearly as much. As far as the priorities we have in the world, the first 2 are pretty pressing.
Yeah, and then we have last our inhabitants. So in addition to humans, there are cryptids. Yes, motherfucker. This is going to be so... It's like it's Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, Jersey Devil. All those are like cryptids. They're basically like...
Can you
So we have our samurai and we have our monsters.
Yeah.
A battle between a samurai and Mothman is something that I would pay an infinite amount of money to see.
like urban myths.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I mean, there's a fucking billion of them. But, oh, look, jackrabbits. Okay. Oh, they're cute. Okay, so...
Jackrabbit with a sword? Yes.
Now, yes, is it the one of the is Bigfoot our samurai? Now, hear me out.
I'm already okay with that. I mean,
I like the idea of cryptid samurais.
I also like Norse trolls. Norse trolls are fun.
So, like troll hunting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was that movie.
That was a good movie.
Troll Hunters or whatever.
Yeah, I liked
like
that
the
movie.
found footage kind of style.
Yeah.
Like, it was pretty good.
I mean, it fits well in our
I thought it was
Ice
going to be
Age.
so bad, and it wasn't at all.
Yeah, it was surprising. But okay, we want our cryptids are the samurai? I think there are the two main ways I see it approach this, and they're two very different directions. But one is that the samurai, kind of like a Kingsman kind of deal, or like a Men in Black, where the samurai are actually still around, but they had started out to fight off cryptids, and now we're in like modern day or whatever, and they are still hunting these creatures, and also there's been some world altering crazy climate shit that is happening.
So something I want to do specifically with the heat wave ice age thing is like, I don't want them to be subsequent to each other. I want them to somehow be both happening at the same time.
Absolutely.
So, so like, how do we?
Like, I don't know how science.
Okay, I got it. This will make the world chaotic and complicated, but maybe interesting. So every other day or like something like that, the world will just like switch climates. And you just wake up and it was hot yesterday and now it is literally just frozen.
Hear me out. We have the Great Wall of China.
Yes.
What if one side of the Great Wall of China is heat wave and the other side is ice age?
I was thinking just, straight up half and half this thing.
Yeah. Well, and I'm saying one of the dividers is the Great Wall of China, which now has been expanded to go across the entire world because these cryptids on either side, keep trying to break over. Maybe there's some magical property to these cryptids actually carry these climates with them in a way.
I like that. So they're
So instead of the Earth being sort of like land and sea, it's just like whatever place is currently under an ice age or more of a heat wave at the given moment.
And chaos breaks out when they do jump sides.
Okay,
some places are constantly heat waves, some places are constantly ice age, but like a lot of the other ones just kind of morph and change, making it really impossible to like set up anywhere.
Yeah, well, and here's a slight change. Big walled city, but it's walled on both sides. It's like the Great Wall of China, but it's on both sides. It was inspired by this, and it goes all the way around the Earth because the only place that is inhabitable is the place between this extreme heat wave and between ice age. That's the only place where the temperature kind of evens out in this little area,
like a Mesopotamia kind of thing.
So
almost.
It's sort of like.
And these
it's like Canada and the U.S. because 90% of Canada's population is on the border.
Yeah, and what makes these cryptids have evolved in these extremely difficult climates, which is why they're so big and scary and tough and like dangerous because they've had to like live in like these extremely hostile environments, and now they're trying to come over to be in these more livable areas. And these samurai are like the wall watchers.
Yes,
but the censorship where that comes in is they don't want the public to know that these cryptids are real
and they're coming in, and so obviously
the cryptids are getting
cities
stronger.
Are gonna have
and getting smarter. Maybe there's
are the cities between, because like there's cities on this side of the wall, there's cities on that side of the wall. Are these cities
between the walls?
Between the walls.
Yes.
I thought we had a wall and then they had like cities, and so they were kind of separated cities that don't usually, like cities that run along the wall.
I mean, I think it's a mixture. Like, I think the city is almost maybe like built into the wall because I think it's not a very wide area. Like, I think it's like, but it's like it's a very long city, but it's not a very like wide city.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
I mean, I'm thinking a lot along the lines of kind of like Attack on Titan.
So there are two walls, one city.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, or maybe I guess it could be a big wall with the city inside of it too.
I'd imagine that it's like, so these dramatic shifts in climate have like decimated the population, right? So like it's relatively sparse inside this relatively thin like inner wall city. So I don't think there's like a ton of people. So like a lot of it's like just sort of untamed land or like farming or something like that, where it's like a practical use or just uninhabited. So like there's long stretches between cities still.
And long ago they built the wall. Their ancestors built this wall to keep cryptids from crossing over or whatever.
And the people who live in the city think that it's other stuff out there. Like they know that it's dangerous out there, but they've been told because who knows? It's radiation. Because maybe that's also there's nuclear stuff involved. That's what also the radiation has helped form these cryptids. It's these extreme environments.
Oh, hell yeah!
And this radiation has caused this rapid evolution of these animals into these mega forms. Of like that's how we get Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster, all this other stuff. And I see this more as like a serial, like something that like not, you know what I mean, like a serial, like a show.
Yes, yeah.
Not like Boo Berry. What if we, instead of pitching a world, we just built a brand of cereal based off of like Count Chocula?
We should absolutely do something like that. We should, in the future, do an ad-based, like, kind of
thing. We could do the Loch Ness Loops, which is like Fruit Loops, but the Loch Ness
I'm still
monster.
caught up on high karma symbols. That's still one of the funniest things to me. Like,
I mean, I think naturally from any of these worlds, there's, plenty of merchandising options.
Right. So hit us up, Disney. You want to own everything. We can spit out ideas all day long.
Apparently.
Just pay us.
Give us money. We'll give them to you.
Put Mickey Mouse can be a cryptid. Then the little mouse gets radiated, and now he's out there fighting samurais.
Fire, I don't know. I might imagine Mickey Mouse would be on the heat wave side of things.
Probably.
I thought he's more of an electric type, but that's Pikachu. So.
He's a fire mouse. Fire mouse type. Mickey Mouse.
So we got this big wall.
What's our aesthetic again? Did we roll for kind of?
It's samurai and monster.
Okay.
And monsters going hand in hand with cryptid.
And so cryptid.
This is pretty great rolls.
What are some of the cryptids that can look like? What are they? I mean, give me some examples.
Obviously, Bigfoot, Loch Ness monster. There's Mothman. The Jersey Devil. There is. Oh man, it's hard to think of these. I mean, a lot of times ghosts fall into the cryptid category. Like people count ghosts as cryptids. I mean, it's basically just anything that's kind of like
urban myth.
Yeah, and, you got yetis, you got
gnomes, trolls.
A lot of one of my favorites is skinwalkers. And skinwalkers, they look like humans. It's actually I believe it actually was derived from the legends of. I forget which Native American tribe it was, but it's like it originated in Arizona. It's these things, they look like humans, but they move, like you can tell that it's not a human because they only can speak things that have been said to them. They can only like repeat phrases, and like mimic voices, and they move slightly weird and stuff like that. It's like I've read so many creepy stories. I
really like Native American lore.
Yeah. And I think that's a really interesting potential episode is like there's all these skinwalkers have gotten into the city and the samurai's having to like hunt them down in the city.
Come up with some sort of like test per se or like. Mm-hmm. And I don't think these cryptids should be easy to take down or like there's any kind of like repetitive way to get rid of them. You know what I mean? Like
because they're all different and so there's gonna be different lore surrounding how to and then maybe we have characters, like a main character, whatever. Has to go to these like old cathedrals with their version of that, like look up, like ways in which they can get rid of these things because nobody knows because this is a new old problem.
I also love the idea of like one of the sources they have to use sometimes being like those old tabloids that are like my husband married Bigfoot or whatever. Like, you know what I mean?
Remnants of like that. Yeah, absolutely.
Like now it's like this is some of the only information they had, and I don't know if it's because these creatures were always out there or now they've been free to like come out because like I do like the idea of maybe it was an ancient because it's weird because we're both like pulling on ancient lore and being in this futuristic setting. So like these samurai are in this much more evolved world.
Are you picturing?
I mean, I don't imagine it being futuristic, but I mean we're in a climate like dystopia.
We're in a time far away.
See, I thought in my head it was building out as like a completely different fantasy world. That's what was building out in my head.
I got you.
Interesting.
I mean, and it could be. I'm just saying that if we want it to be that radiation is part of the thing that is creating these cryptids, then I think it does have to be like maybe this could be the world in like 10 years,
right.
20 or whatever.
So alternative human Earth.
Yeah.
Yeah. 2
big walls, a city in the middle, right?
Cities.
Yeah. Like just along like in between farmland and etc. Right?
Yeah.
Somehow.
And it's kind of neat is like, at least from the bird's eye view, where you have like this untamed, fucked up, cold wilderness, and you have like this hot place. And then like in this middle, we have a string of cities that would theoretically go this way, and it's like then we have like because each city is going to be in its like own kind of lost the thought. Carry on.
What?
I lost it. Yeah.
Okay. Well. We've talked a little bit, so I like the idea of like these grand cities built into these giant walls. Mm-hmm. But let's talk a little bit about the samurai and how they have moved on. Because, I mean, I'm not going to act like I know everything about actual samurai culture.
I know
Definitely
almost
not.
next to nothing.
And I'd say that probably all the information I have is probably wrong because it's
Cliche
more,
media.
it's like media interpretation of samurai. And I really think that's what we're kind of going to have to dig and follow. Just because I don't really know much about actual samurai, other than they did function a lot like knights did in medieval culture. And
I mean, they seemed like they did, but they didn't. Just so we're clear.
they didn't. Well, I thought they were like given like plots of land. Well, it's not important.
I mean, it's they're both feudal systems to a degree. Like, I mean, like you're given a certain amount of power, whether that be land or control over people, in exchange for protecting those people.
Yeah, and I think, and I don't think we should do their like landowners. I think it really should be like this elite squad of like this wandering. I like the idea of this wandering squad of samurai.
Walk up and down the
They march the walls.
They march the walls, and it's like these long treks, and they go, and they can be in the middle of nowhere, you know, in their version of the middle of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I like just like the imagery of, you know, like them being up there kind of in the wild, but not because they're elevated on this wall. And then like they see off in the distance, like, you know, some sort of like swirling chaos of, you know, like particularly icy cryptid or whatever.
Yeah. Like they see a bunch of Jersey Devils walking around the corpse of like some giant ass tiger or something like that. Like,
it's like out beyond the wall a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So they've got to have some kind of way to like travel, like something that like helps them like avoid all the hazards of the environment.
And
you know what this reminds me of? There's a video game that's very similar to this that I played for a while. I think you've actually seen me play it. Kenshi is what it's called, and it's absolutely great. Like the world it creates, it's really interesting because it is feudal. It's like a dystopian society, but it's like it's a mixture. It really is kind of what we're doing right now. It's like feudal Japan, but I think it was the lore is, which is very hidden because it doesn't really come out and tell you. Is that I believe it was nuclear war, but what if Japan recovered and was in this feudal system? So there's all this. It's this a wasteland, but all the characters are fighting with weapons like swords and all these other like traditional like Japanese.
That game. Yeah.
And then there's like these weird mutant creatures that you can like get to follow you around. Like it's very similar to what we're talking about right now.
Now that you say that,
and it is an interesting aesthetic. What I want to ask is so these. Because now also this is reminding me of Samarai Jack because you know like you're a lone samurai going and going through all these things, but this is less of a futuristic world I think and more of a kind of backpedaling the world.
It's we bombed ourselves back to the Stone Age almost idea.
Yeah, and
not quite, but
no, not quite.
I do kind of like the idea that there are still some cool gadgets and stuff these samurai could have, you know, that let them like jump a little higher and like
things like that.
Like I think that would lead to some cooler action sequences with these cryptid fights and stuff like that. But I definitely do think like like gunpowder is really scarce, so there's a lot of stuff with bows maybe, but like they do have like some cool like compound bows shit, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That can like transform and stuff like that, and so you have different characters who specialize in different weapons. That would be fun.
I think they've gotten really creative with how these things work, and just like increase power, increase damage, and I think like each city has their own like. I don't know if it's like a squad or like a series of squads of samurai.
Are there good cryptids?
I think that's something that would be explored, and I think that because I mean cryptids also have different levels of intelligence, because there's like the crazy beasts and whatnot, and then even some cryptids, there are arguments about like how much intelligence they're supposed to have because I mean they're not real, so people can make up anything. But it's like you hear different stories. Some people like the Loch Ness monster is just this crazy beast that like
it's an old ass dinosaur.
Yeah, but then other people think that it's capable of like communicating and like you know it has intelligence, and I think the same is Bigfoot and these other things. And then there are definitely creatures that are just kind of chaotic monsters. But I mean like Mothman's another one that some people say the Mothman is actually like the thing about Mothman is his thing is he was seen and this bridge collapsed, and a lot of people the legend about him is half the people believe he is the one who collapsed the bridge, and the other half believe he was there to warn people the bridge was going to collapse. And so and there's actually a very interesting,
right? The Appalachian Mountains kind of lore.
Yeah. And there's actually a very interesting podcast that you've heard of, the Adventure Zone. They do a series. The season after Adventure Zone is called Amnesty, and it's a Monster of the Week kind of thing,
fun.
to where, but it's this role playing game they play, but they're doing it, and one of the characters in it is the Mothman that they interact with a lot. And so like I do like the idea that there maybe is certain cryptids that they befriend or something. Like we go back to the Samurai Agency, and like it's a big reveal that one of the members of this squad is a cryptid or something, or
Like
there's the member.
Is there magic and there's like alchemy?
I want there to be, but we didn't roll it.
Mm-hmm.
So
we
I
can add
think,
things that aren't in the role.
Cryptids are inherently magical, right?
But then I think that should stay to the cryptids, then.
I'm gonna do. Let you guys keep talking. I'm gonna keep adding. I think I'm gonna do a little googling as we talk because I'm gonna look up some more cryptids because I feel like our list is kind of short right now.
Do Lovecraftian things fall under cryptids?
I don't.
What is Lovecraftian?
Like Cthulhu and God, those weird fish people, and so many other weird, strange beasts.
I don't think.
What?
I don't think that. I don't think they do. I don't think Lovecraftian stuff does. But
Bear Lake Monster.
I mean, yeah. So here's some pictures of stuff, and I mean, jungle walrus.
Kraken.
What the fuck is a jungle walrus? A digonek is a creature said to have been seen near Lake Victoria in 1910. A jungle walrus. I love that. Jungle walrus is definitely up. So I'm
Kraken.
like the Kraken, the Loch Ness monster.
I might make the jungle walrus and post.
Sea serpents. Icy sea serpents.
Yeti, and then I mean a lot of ones with wings.
Can you go back up? I want to kind of read some of those.
The Monkey Man of Delhi.
Oh, good. What's orange? Orang Bati. Oh, I should have known.
Is a winged cryptid rumored to inhabit
Is it
bat-like, beetle-like, or somewhat monkey-like
Is it like
creatures.
an orangutan, but Bati?
I think orangutan is like an orangutan bat because it's like part monkey,
That's
part
hilarious.
bat.
So it's like
part
those
beetle.
things from The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, I'm happy. And
Fun
now
monkeys?
I do think, yeah, because I think that they can't really have magic. I think that I like the idea of there being like an alchemist character who does do a lot of bombs and stuff like
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's, I mean, gunpowder originated in China and stuff like that. So I feel like a samurai, that would be a skill that I think could be linked to the
That'd be
samurai.
Yeah, absolutely.
That'd be
I mean,
really
like they definitely did use smoke as a tactic.
Or I like the idea that
Smoke screens.
like they have kind of
Yeah.
he also has kind of
Right.
older guns, but he specializes in mixing stuff. So he makes his own bullets and he has like bombs and stuff like that.
Different
Him or
ones that are like
It's a slingshot.
she or they or whatever.
Yeah. Days.
And then you got your bow boy, and I'm using boy with an I, so it could be anything. And then you obviously have your sword. And I like the idea of,
I want
what
somebody
else?
with like a talking stick.
What if someone's
is that
got a
one like
cryptid
is that like a
friend?
bow staff?
Yeah.
Yeah, because we gotta have a bow staff one.
Mm.
Yeah, somebody who hits people with sticks.
And so I think someone else needs one of those things on the chain that you like throw.
Nunchucks?
No, like the little things on the
chain.
but it's like nunchucks, but there's a
Is it
longer chain,
nun-
and you can throw them, and they have like the little like scythe on the end of them.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, those are cool.
It's
I don't know what
like
they're called,
Ivy from Soul Calibur. Game
Yeah.
reference.
Yeah, so like we got that. I mean, and I think that's I feel like that's enough for the main squad. There's 5 of them. There's one more than the
Five's
Ninja
comfy.
Turtles, so we got that on them.
There we go. And then they like run into other ones. Like other
Here's what
cities
I
have like
think.
different
Should we begin off
combinations,
with
like so
4?
many different weapons and like.
So this is a little bit storyline, but like begins off with 4 going on like a regular campaign,
Mhm.
and then they encounter somebody who has like either been lost to them, they thought was dead, and has just been living out on the wall/wild areas alone. And then he has come to them, and they come, and he's like, things are much worse than you think. And then he lays like the premise of what the journey would be, which is to stop XYZ or whatever from lots of things, or maybe this is
Find the source of the cryptids.
right, and why they're acting out.
Yeah, well, I mean, in a lot of ways, I think that once again, I think that's why I think this is a little bit more of a
Series.
is because I don't even think we really have to address like that they're coming from somewhere, because I think it's one of the things they're always going to be coming, and this is more just dealing with the problem.
Yeah, one cryptid per episode, sort of feel vibe.
Yeah,
Well,
so
maybe they're trying to get off Earth. I mean,
Oh my
like,
god.
in like a huge, grand, long scheme of
What
things.
if they held the belief that the Earth is indeed hollow? So they're actually just trying to find their way in.
Oh,
I mean,
go under.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, if doing cryptids, we could do other conspiracy theories as well. That'd
Yeah.
be kind of fun.
So like this, they're on this mission or whatever to find the hole, Believe me, this is turning into a comedy in my head.
I mean, I definitely think there's elements of comedy to it. Like, a fighting Mothman is pretty.
Yeah.
It's pretty fun to think about.
They're going to find the entrance into the earth because it is hollow, and then they just have to deal with these random monsters they encounter for episode 1 or so or 2, whatever.
Yeah, I could see that being kind of the grander season arc.
Yeah,
is them,
that's what I mean.
And them trying to find a new place to dwell because they can only keep defending the cryptid attacks are becoming more frequent because there are more of them, and they can't continue to keep this away. I do like the idea of Mothman maybe being friendly though, and maybe who they find eventually is Mothman who tells them that there is this secret cavern or whatever.
Right, he
that
would
they
know.
could live in.
He's a moth.
Right. and so he's
With
kind of this friendly
Matisse or whatever they're called. Matisse.
Yeah. He's kind of this friendly creature that helps them in a way. Or even if he isn't friendly, he's not hostile. He's just kind of this he's almost like the Watcher in Marvel stuff, the big guy with the big head who just stands there and watches major events happen.
Yeah.
Something like that. Where he's just this kind of ambivalent thing, but he does give them this one piece of information while he's in their holding cell or whatever, just kind of standing there staring at a light or something like that.
Yes.
I mean, that's what I mean.
They don't
It'd be funny if they light a fire one night out in a wilder area and he just kind of shows up, sits down next to them, and just says nothing for a moment, and they're all just what the fuck?
Yeah.
And he moves to a spot slightly closer and then goes back. And then moves and burns himself at one point. Dude, stop. Catch him.
Sizzles
Plus, Mothman in reality in a lot of media is really creepy looking because he's more like an owl than a moth. He has huge saucer eyes and
like a fly.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, I can pull up a picture of Mothman to show you guys.
Because
I think we should.
That's what moth heads look like. They have giant eyes for heads.
There's a lot of different interpretations of him, but
yes, there are.
It's more you see, he's kind of almost more owl-like than moth-like, in my opinion. In a lot of the interpretations, he says, and it really just depend on who's drawing him, I guess. But he's this very creepy looking thing, but at the same, but I like the idea. I once again I kind of like the idea of he does get captured because he doesn't really resist them. Yeah, and I don't think
they ever do capture him.
Well, I think they take him back to their base and they think they have him captured, but he's just there because he wants. I like the idea of because I think he shows up as they're around this campfire or whatever, and he's just there and they're all freaking out and they start trying to fight him. And he's just he doesn't attack them, but he defends himself. And then they end up capturing him, getting him to come with him. And he's in this holding cell and he tells them this thing. And they're talking, that's all I can tell you. I'm going to leave now. And they're like, you can't leave. And they look back and he's gone.
You can't leave.
Doses.
This just,
and he transforms into a tiny moth and disappears.
Yeah, and so something like that, that character is kind of also the thing. And so there's also this level of can we trust this
information from this cryptid. Ooh, I almost had a title there.
And it would, I think it also would give an opportunity to help us do a little bit of world building as far as explaining how this happened, because without us having to shoehorn it down early on, because I think at first it's kind of ambiguous, what is going on, even if we're even on Earth, if this is a new place. And because Mothman's thing is he always appears before disasters. There are some people who even claim to see Mothman before 9/11, all these other
so every time
major
Mothman shows up in the series, it precedes a bad event.
Possibly, but also when they're interrogating him, he explains that he is the Mothman from our time, and it's I was at this the first time when I came to this bridge, and people saw me and they didn't believe me, and it keeps going, and he can actually be there to explain and I was there to when the button was being pressed, launch these nuclear weapons, and I tried to warn someone. And they failed.
Oh
and he's
my god! And a bunch of old pictures superimposed with Mothman.
Yes,
in them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And all this other stuff. And so that's how he. And we can also say that there are other times that he has succeeded. It's not like he always fails. We can have these other events maybe he was part of the reason the Cuban Missile Crisis didn't happen or something like that.
Yeah.
Or he was there that one. Have you guys heard the story about that one Russian guy who
he was there the day Trump was elected?
It was it was when the Russians or it was either the Russians or Americans nuclear missile system malfunctioned, and it showed that nuclear missiles were being fired at one of the countries, and this one guy who was in charge of retaliating and like sending missiles back said, I'm not going to do it. I think this is wrong. I have a bad feeling about this. Right. And so maybe it was the Mothman was there for that moment or something like that. I mean, it's a hyper specific moment, but I think that would be a cool thing to like have him there. And so this is once again, Mothman, he's warning, that's what it is. The overall, he's like, the city will be destroyed if you do not find somewhere to go by this day.
Yeah.
And maybe he doesn't even tell him about the hollow.
Destroyed no matter what. But, like, you need to get out by the X way.
Yeah, and he doesn't even give them an escape. He says you need to figure something out. And then this is them trying to do it. And one thing they eventually stumble on is the hollow earth
theory. Yes.
Because if they can get underground, maybe it's something like finally the heat wave and the ice are still pushing.
That's what I was just thinking. So parts of the wall are starting to, like, fall, or, like, and so, like, that's what's letting the cryptids in, A, and then B, like, that's now uninhabitable land.
Yeah.
Yep. So we have these two extreme biomes basically coming in.
Yeah.
And it has been for many, many years. So society's eventually just had...
and the censorship is, in addition to the cryptids, it's also keeping from the people that they only have so much longer. Like before, then once these biomes, once they combine, like there's going to be no livable space.
Like the size of an apartment.
And so I mean, this is part of it, and like they're having to like kind of move people, because maybe we could just straight up steal a lot from Attack on Titan, and it's multiple layers of walls. And so, like, they're having to evacuate the outermost layers of walls and stuff like that.
I think the cities would have their own individual defenses. I don't think it's just open space in the middle of these two walls. I think, like, they're, like, walled cities and, like, you know, different gates and, like, different tolls, bridges, things like that.
Tolls travel the one way back and forth. Could you imagine how it would?
Well, I mean, really, there'd be dedicated trade routes for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so, like, I mean, and, like, you have oceans to cross and things like that. So, like, they're...
But I do like the idea of having various walls, and then you end up in the center city where the elites probably are, or whatever.
Mm-hmm. And I like several layers, and I like to imagine like the outermost wall, like no matter what, it goes like all the way. So like literally, like they built it over the ocean and stuff like that. So the samurai, there's like scenes of them walking out there, and that's like an episode where they have to fight the Kraken or like
or
something like that, and the Kraken's like wrapping itself around the wall.
Right? Oh no, Krakens are octopus.
I thought there were giant squids. I mean, they're pictured both ways, I think. Now I think about it, I see the Kraken pictured as an octopus in some stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's just a giant, that thing.
Yeah.
Cephalopod.
I mean, it's probably just someone saw a dead giant squid and said that must be a Kraken. But then I also think like you have the potential to do like sirens and mermaids and other stuff like that.
For sure.
Like siren episodes are always really fun.
Yeah.
It is monsters. It's not just cryptids.
Oh yeah.
True. So I mean, we could also get around that. I mean, I definitely also think if you're going to do a Frozen Tundra episode, like pay homage to the Thing and do an episode where there's a shapeshifter in the Frozen Tundra or something like that, and they got to like figure out who's who. I like just because the Thing is to this day like the original, and I even like the remake. Like are both like such good horror movies.
Mm-hmm. What is it called?
The Thing.
The Thing. Oh,
it's like it's this story where these guys they're stuck in this frozen research station. Not stuck, but they're working in this research station. They dig something out of the ice, and it's like this creature, and then it gets out. But the thing is, it can shapeshift by like it absorbs someone or kills them, but it can take their form perfectly. Except they figure out later it can't replicate inorganic material. So if you have like a filling in your tooth, that's how they find out later on.
Oh,
but like it's a constant. Like no one knows who they can trust. Because any one of them could be the Thing. And like even through a lot of the movie, the audience isn't really even sure who the Thing is.
Because it changes, right? I mean,
and like the other thing is they can't leave. They're like, we can't leave until we figure out who the Thing is, because if this thing gets out, it could, decimate humanity.
Right.
Because like it's very tough to kill, and like you can't kill it with bullets. I think they end up having to burn it with fire. And the ending is still very ambiguous,
which
like
makes sense
whether or not they actually
ice.
Yeah. And so it's that's a little tangent. I just love the Thing. It's so great, and the original special effects for the original movie are so well done. It's like one of the best like uses of practical effects. Like it's crazy, but I like the idea of being able to bring in some more classic monsters, and maybe even get a kaiju in there.
I think they would. I think going over the ocean, they would fight a kaiju.
Yeah.
I think especially if we're doing radiation nukes and stuff. Yeah.
Fine.
I think there's a hot kaiju and a cold kaiju.
Yeah.
And each one.
And I also love the idea is like, what if they like there's these two giant ones that are coming at the city, and they, instead of having to figure out a way to fight it, they can find a way to have them fight each other.
Yes, because they're coming for each other in a way. But I mean, wouldn't their fight in turn destroy the city? That's the concern.
Yeah.
So we have ice kaiju coming closer, bringing the cold with it.
Yeah.
Fire kaiju coming from that side, bring hot with it.
Bringing the heat with it.
And
bringing the heat
coming, and that's what Mothman told them was going to happen to the city. And so you have now do something or don't.
Yeah.
Doses.
Yeah.
Mothman.
Mothman out.
I definitely think there's like I like the idea of at one point they have to fight a bunch of Yeti and they have to get a Bigfoot to help them.
Yes.
Because Bigfoot's basically like friendly Yeti. Because like Bigfoot's always like kind of like in a lot of things is like Bigfoot's the gentle giant, but Yeti are always like they will fuck your shit up.
And they have to go through like this whole episode of just finding Bigfoot. So there's gonna be so many jokes, Bigfoot jokes, so many Bigfoot jokes.
And yeah, I mean, I think the individual episodes, like the individual things, like write themselves. Especially when you add in like these crazy like. I do actually. I love the idea of it being animated because I always want more Samarai Jack. I can never get enough Samarai Jack, and so it's just very Samarai Jack style. Even if it is that more simple animation, but you have these crazy fight scenes where everyone's using these crazy weapons and fighting all these different variations of creatures that are either like super fast or super strong or can fly. Like I imagine like this, like I said earlier, like this squad of Jersey Devils like going in and like grabbing people, and these samurai having to like be jumping across rooftops and slicing them out of the air, shooting them. You know, the Bose guy specializes in having a bunch of stuff with strings, so he's constantly like fucking like grappling, hooking all over the place.
Yes.
And, like he at one point he's riding a Jersey Devil and shooting other ones. like
this is Hawkeye, but samurai.
Right.
Samurai Hawkeye.
Yeah, I like that.
And it's still samurai if you put those together.
it's Sammer and then it's EYE.
It's samurai or Hawkeye. If you combine it either, it doesn't work. Samhawk.
Hawkeye.
Why? What are they called again? We keep on saying that word.
Jersey Devils.
No, our creatures. I just can't.
Cryptids.
Cryptid. Okay.
And then you have like a skinwalker one that's a little bit more of like a tense like what's going on, like who can you trust, like what's real, because they can take the form of anybody. And so that, and like I do like the idea of that being in one of the frozen areas, because I do think there's a very big thing parallel there. But there's like a ton of them. Like there's a lot of, because it's almost like zombie, because skinwalkers are almost like zombies meet shapeshifters. Like that's what it is. And honestly, in a lot of the stories I read about them, people aren't exactly sure what skinwalkers want. So they just know that they have this kind of weird malevolent energy about them. Like, but they don't know if they eat people or they...
Yeah, I was going to ask, do skinwalkers inherit the memories of the person?
No. Like, it straight up is like they just take the form and like, and they, and they, once again, like they can't speak. They make these weird noises, but they can only say things they've heard. So a lot of times you will hear them saying stuff like help, you know, like, cause
I remember that scene.
And like, and like a lot of people think it's cause like if they attack the person whose form they took, that person is screaming like, help me. And now they can say that. And that's how they draw other people in.
Just so spooky. It's like a creepy parrot.
Yeah.
Like a creepy parrot.
Yeah. And then it's also, I think I've read a couple of things that have said things about what the skinwalkers could look like when they're not in their form, but it's never clear. But so I like the idea of they're actually this kind of what's it called? It's they talk about it in Rick and Morty when they take the weird ugly shapes.
Hold on, pause.
All right, sorry, we had to take a little break because we had a little memory card issue, but we used our time. That's nothing. It's nothing.
It could be something. Could be something. Get your card for your tits.
Anyway, so I did a little research on samurai while we were in the dark, and one thing I kind of looked up what their traditional weapons were, and some very quick Googling on some other stuff. One they had, I already forgot what it's called, but they actually had their own form of martial arts, which is kind of cool. And then I think we should talk about what our main gang is going to be like. So I kind of do. I personally, I think the main guy should just be your kind of classical samurai with the sword.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's like a Zoro from One Piece kind of character.
Sure, I have not seen One Piece.
Oh, gotcha. He just fights with 3 swords. But
Awesome.
like probably has 2.
Yeah, samurai, they would always have 2. Like, that was a big thing. Like, they had these 2 very special swords and no one else was allowed to carry. And one was like their big fighting sword and the other one was like a little dagger.
Mm-hmm.
More of a dagger. That's the one that, it's also the one where if they ever like were to kill themselves, they would use the shorter dagger to do that.
It's more efficient.
And so that's our main guy. And we, and do you want to be a guy or a girl? I mean, we have it on a bit of a guy streak. It could be a girl.
It could be a girl.
Yeah, girl.
Yeah, I guess that's novel, like female samurai.
Yeah.
Novel.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
And I mean, I think our squad's going to be a mix.
For sure.
And then we have
Hakurai.
Hakurai.
That is archery, yeah.
Archer. I don't even think we need to get into gender on these people. It really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And so, but what's sword persons? What's their deal? What's their backstory? Why are they a samurai? Is it like an ancient? Is our main character the type that's super good and like is he or she the
YouTube samurai? Learned everything on YouTube.
I think it's almost an inherited position, like passed down. You know what I mean?
And so are they good at what they do, or are they kind of the underdog that's gotten thrown into this position and is trying to?
Depends on if we're doing a comedy or something serious.
I think they've worked to get to I think they're learning, but they've like worked pretty hard to get to where they're at. So like they have room to grow. Like they're not incredible, but they're not bad.
Maybe they're a phenomenal fighter, but they're not a phenomenal leader yet.
Mm.
Okay.
Maybe something along the lines of that. And now they've been given this team. They've been moved up. They were kind of like, and like the team kind of looks at them strangely at first because like they basically shot up like straight out of the samurai training academy.
Yeah.
They've been put in this position of one of the most elite squads, and everyone's like, what have you haven't fought enough? You haven't done enough to be worthy of this.
Right.
And then like maybe they're,
but they're running low on fighters, and so she's all they have to fill certain roles.
Yeah, and so she could be. I like the idea of maybe she even has family in this program.
Mm-hmm.
Like her father was this legendary samurai.
Yes.
Or her mother.
To fill. Big shoes.
Either way, or both of her parents. I kind of like it. Both of her parents were like this fighting duo that killed this one huge cryptid or something like that. But they died in the battle as well. Like succumbed to their wounds, or one of the parents died and the other one got really injured and is now in a wheelchair or something like that.
Oh yeah, I like that.
And,
like the consultations.
What if they died in a fight with the cold kaiju and a warm kaiju? One of them got the cold, one of them got the warm one, but they both died in the process.
Oh yeah, I like that little yin and yang.
It's poetic.
Kind of like
that's cute.
And so they both died taking on these huge creatures with their own squads and like all this other stuff. And she lost both of her parents in that day, and dedicated herself to becoming as noble of a fighter as they were. And so she's been just phenomenal. She excels at all of it. Like she is one of the greatest swordsmen of the program, and she gets put in charge of this team of people, or vice versa. She gets put in this team, and immediately, like the leader of the squad gets murked, and she has to step up and take over the position. I kind of like that
next
more.
in command. Yeah,
earns it. No, a trial by fire kind of moment.
Very similar to. I mean, I think there are a lot of things like this
and
where
it
it's like
when they're like actually on a mission, right? So it's sort of like the whole group's like, oh, we just lost our leader, who was technically second in command. You know?
I think it just becomes like a split-second decision. Like at that point,
she just starts yelling out commands. And like she has this family, this need to live up to this. She gets put in the leadership position, and she's constantly still trying to fight with them, with her, not fight with her team, but there is that constant like tension. Fighting for respect and like because she is the newest of them. She's seen the least,
right?
Technically in the field, although growing up she was constantly around this stuff,
right?
I think she's like heard the stories and like studied what there is that is known about the cryptids, and the other monsters.
And then we have, and I think that's enough. That's a bare bones on her. Mm-hmm. And then we have our bow person. Mm-hmm. What's their deal? I feel like they're maybe they're the really like stoic one, kind of like the Spock kind of character who's like not very emotional, very calculated, very like
assassin vibes.
knows the weak points of a lot of these cryptids, like knows how to like take them down in one shot.
Yeah, like almost like the scholar of the group in a lot of ways, you know, where they're like they're always very precise, they're very cool, they're very collected. I like the idea. I think that they didn't like lose their parents, but I like the idea that they're like an orphan or something.
Yeah, orphan.
And I think there's going to be a lot of dead parents in this world because I think that once again there is kind of the bloodline thing with samurai. I think it is like a title that's passed down through families and stuff like that. So a lot of people, your family tree gets trimmed off pretty badly working in this line of work. But and so she is, or the bow person, whatever they are, they just they're very
wise.
Yeah, they're wise, but they're very, like, their weakness is also their lack of emotion. Like, that's why they couldn't be the leader. Like, at first they thought they were going to be the next in command, but they don't have
the qualities at which,
you know, it's like
they're self-contained, basically.
Yeah, it's like they can't think of it. They, like, people are just almost like numbers to them in a lot of ways. And, like, you have to understand the team on an emotional level as well to be the best leader for the group.
Or maybe they had a squad at one point, but like made a calculated risk that didn't pay off, and like because they didn't take into account that the risk and possible loss of life lost their command.
And so even though they seem emotionless, they're constantly living with this guilt of having lost their previous squad, and why maybe after this, so the real leader gets taken out in this whatever first battle, and this other person takes over, and then when it's done, command tries to put the bow person in charge, and the bow person says, "I can't do that. Like I think that she should be the leader." And I like that. And so her deal is she's living with her guilt of the squad that's passed away, but she's she's the smart one of the group. I don't know why. She's a she. Let's just say she's a she.
I would like that.
The entire time.
Yeah.
And doing all this other stuff. And then I like the idea of. And so after that, I think we need.
What are our weapons? We have bows. We have swords. Do we have the hook on a string?
I don't know what that's called. It's not a traditional samurai weapon, but who cares?
It's like a
cool
grappling hook kind of thing.
Yeah.
And like the scythe on a chain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I kind of like the idea of.
That'd be so.
Yeah, that character. What would their deal be? I kind of like the idea of like that weapon is something about like pulling people towards you. I kind of imagine this person's actually really friendly. You know what I
mean? Yeah, like a charismatic kind of like
a horrifyingly positive person.
Yeah, like this extremely bubbly like person, like
just
like
absolutely
constantly
savage. Just
but then but also like they're kind of a little bit unhinged. Like you see them fighting and they're smiling while they do it.
Yeah,
and
I know that.
Slinging their thing and like pulling people close so they can like kick them or whatever. But at the same time, they're smiling from like.
I want it to be a seductive male.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Well, because it's kind of feels like a shitty pitfall to be like the very like seductive character is a female. I like it if it's just this
seductive
like flamboyant
has
man
fantastic hair.
I think at this point like he does not value his life. Like at this point, he's trying to be as flashy and like do as much as he possibly can, but like does not care if he lives or dies at the end of the day.
And then flirts with everything.
Yeah, and like
it's a life short. Fuck it.
And I like the idea of like once again the samurai. People don't really know what the samurai do, but they know that the samurai are this elite squad of people, and it's very highly respected, and he loves the attention.
Yes.
Like he's constantly showing off.
Low-key narcissist.
Yeah, like he's this narcissistic character, but he's also very like flirty, very like, and very very nice. I think he's flirty in like a not gross way. You know what I mean? He's not like
romantic flirty. You mean?
Yeah, like
a rose for a rose.
Like he's very sweet, and he's very emotionally open and all this other stuff. And then I like the idea of now it does say that samurai later on they had guns and cannons and all this other stuff. I like the idea of there being this.
I want to be a cannon master.
Well, I think at some point this guy's gonna bust out a cannon in one episode, like a shoulder mounted cannon that he loads up. But I think it should be. I think it would almost be like a gunslinger like character.
Yes. Well, here's what.
And sorry.
If it's on a wall, right? Mm-hmm. In theory, this wall could have tracks. Mm-hmm. So I mean, like that's, that is big enough for something like a tow-along cannon, and he just literally sits on it all the time as like everybody else walks.
Well, I don't like the idea of it being all the time, but I like the idea of he sometimes pulls out these mega guns or whatever, like these mega cannons, stuff like that. And I especially like the idea of maybe like, and I think that's a kind of constant cool thing is, but I also like the idea of like maybe his thing is he is not Japanese or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
He is kind of this foreigner whose family got adopted in this program, so he feels like an outcast and all this other stuff. But he's more of this Western cowboy character because he's literally like a gunslinger. He literally is a gunslinger, and he is like in this thing, and he's very kind of gruff and short, and like he doesn't know the language super well. Maybe like he speaks it, but like he's a little bit rough in his pronunciation and stuff like that. Like he's kind of seen as this, he's not as well put together. Like he doesn't take his grooming as seriously and stuff like that. Cause he has like the stubble, all this other stuff, but he's kind of messy. Like he has this workshop where he's making all these like bombs and special cartridges for his gun and stuff like that. And
I just want to throw this idea out now, and it's not related to this show, but I really like this idea, so just let me vocalize it. In an alternate version, it's a wall with a small, unheavy track, right, that can carry objects, and it's sort of like a form of transport of items, right? Like sort of like a train, but like not, but it's smaller and it's like down to the ground. And I like the idea of like some random group traveling along with like stuff, on this track, and then like sometimes like, and it's against the rules, but like you can like take other people's stuff off the tracks that are getting transported back and forth, and they're just trying to survive. But anyways, I
do like the idea of there being a track along the wall, though.
Yeah,
and like
in some spots for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, probably along the whole.
And sometimes
and
like a random package will just
these
cruise on
cities
by.
that are so far apart. But and then there are spots where the track has been damaged or is no longer usable, and it's hard to get out there. And like maybe one episode is they have to, when they're going out to the sea, like they have to get out there and basically supervise and protect the people who are rebuilding the track, and that's when it's like the Kraken episode or something.
Yeah, that'd be really neat.
Well, I'd imagine like trying to find some kind of fuel for trains would be relatively difficult. I mean, like you have steam, but like still like keeping the infrastructure. I bet you it'd be more of like the handrail car. It's more than I love that.
Or horse drawn or something like that.
I love the handrails. I think that makes it really funny.
Have you ever seen this old contraption they had where it was this horse powered train, whereas these horses would basically be on this big treadmill and power this thing that would to pull it, so you could pull it without steam power. But like it was kind of dumb.
Yes.
And it was very expensive to build. But but it could be so. I do like the idea of maybe that's something for this world. Is there's these horse powered trains and stuff like that.
It's just the imagery. Sorry, go.
I think our cowboy character just knows how to like use everything from the land. Sorry, I had to go back.
No, you're good.
He's like knows how to use everything from the land, and like kind of that's where his knowledge base and use is. Like he'll hunt, he'll find food. Like
he's as the alchemist, he's very kind of naturalistic.
I just want to put this imagery, all of them, on one of those big things, and they're just like they would look so dumb. They have just going back and forth on this teeter.
They have those big hats, the big slip hatch, which looks so fucking cool. I don't know why, but I love them. When I played Kenshi, all of my characters had them. They were so cool. And play Kenshi, everyone. Support that game. It's so fucking sick.
This thing.
Yeah, the big hat.
So there's there's the rice hat, and then there's that canopy he always wore.
The wooden backpacks.
I really want someone to have one of those.
I mean, I think the alchemist, I think the gunslinger does. Because I think he's always carrying around a bunch of shit. Because he's like constantly switching out. Because once again, he has like old cartridge weapons. I think he maybe has one revolver he can load pretty quick. But then it's like he has a musket. And he has like satchels of like bombs and stuff like that he uses, and like and he also constantly is bringing out these weird inventions and stuff like that.
He's making shit like
yes,
like he's the one who whenever they have a special cryptid they need to catch or whatever, he's the one who designs the trap or whatever. And then, or are we giving him too much? Do we need to split him up into two different characters? I
like where he's at. I think we've given him enough.
Yeah, and his main the chip on his shoulder is he's not part of this culture, really. He is, he feels out of place. Outsider. And although he tries to be part of it, he always feels disconnected. And like I think it's even like as he walks through the street, there's a little bit of
he catches looks.
Yeah, it's just the whole like culturally he's not like in this land a lot of people are very similar. Like this ancestry, and like he is the outsider.
Yeah.
And then I think we need a big person. We need like a heavy duty.
I pictured him as the big person.
No, I think she's average
Really?
build. Yeah.
Well, because I want the big person to have the Geki, which is basically the bow. It's like a bow staff, but it has a big blade on one end. And I think he has a big, fucking huge, like
big ass Geki.
Well, I think he has a Geki, and then I also think that I forget what it is. I know Kenshi has them, where it's these huge fucking swords. It's basically just a handle, and then just this thing of steel that's like this. It's like this wide, and then it's like this tall, and you just like swing it boom, all around. Like it's this huge fucking weapon. I don't even know what it's called. But I like the idea of and if we wanted to subvert it a little bit, it could be a female who has this big like hulking female character who is just
also the cook.
Yeah, also the cook. I like that.
Perfect.
And like that's the thing, like they go back and forth between this being really intimidating and then like this very like they have these overly garnished like
they're incredible. They're like
yeah, I like that.
And like just overly sweet and nice until it comes to, of course.
And they're like we have like kind of the flirtier character is the one with the sling blades, whatever.
Very flashy, very fast, very like
and not, also kind of like
not
frilly.
brute strength.
I want who's a little frilly with it.
But the big person is nice, but more in like just a kind way,
right? Like in a genuine way.
Yeah. And like they're just very supportive and like cool. But what's their backstory? What's their deal?
Do we have a team Grouch though?
I think the gunslinger.
Mm-hmm.
I pictured him as being a Grouch.
Okay.
And I mean, there's the Spot character who's I think a bit of a buzzkill. Our bow girl.
Mm-hmm.
She's a bit of a buzzkill, but and so she's also kind of grouchy. And then I mean, I think that our main girl, the sword girl, I think that she's also not like full of laughs. I think that she's very focused.
Pretty serious.
Mm-hmm.
But I think she also can lighten up.
Yeah.
And then we have our flirty. And then we just have our nice kind of our supportive big person. But I mean they don't need a tragic backstory, but I mean they need what they're facing, what their story is about. So like what's their issue?
Lost a child, but that's cliche.
Actually, I kind of like that. If it is this kind of older, big, strong woman who like was.
It's good this system we built that caught it.
Well, she's fixing the camera, but I like the idea of there being this older woman who is very strong, very but graying hair, but has these big fuck off swords and stuff like this. And
I think she's like
she had a daughter or a son who was going into the samurai profession, and they died fighting, and so now she has no heir. There's no one to carry on her family name or whatever, and that's kind of her deep sadness. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, she's supportive and like she loves her team and like in a lot of ways is kind of like this mother figure.
I think she's been around since like shortly after this whole thing started.
Right, she was like one of the original, and although she never like really rose up the ranks, just because that wasn't something she was interested in. Like she was always just been this front of the line fighter.
She just wanted to survive at the beginning because that's all she could do. And now that as order and organization came to be a part of it, like her, like you said, her child originally went into it, and then the child goes away, so she then feels the need to.
Yeah, and maybe she actually has two children, and one of her children followed the samurai line and died, and the other child, the other child is wanting to become a samurai, and she's like, that's one of her side stories, is she's having to deal with, does she let her child join this program, or does she stop them so that the child won't get killed? Because once again, this is a dangerous line of work to be in. Mm-hmm. So I like that. I like that.
We are at time.
We are at time?
Yep.
Are you sure? Because we did have that break.
Long break. Mine's sitting at 71 right now.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we're probably about time to wrap it up.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we got our characters, our set of 5.
Do we have a name?
Yes.
I mean, fire and ice is the first thing I thought of.
I mean, cryptid fire,
Oh.
But not fire, because it needs to imply. I
was thinking like fire and ice, the journey underground.
What's its word? Another word for yin and yang?
Yeah, I was thinking maybe yin and yang, something involving that.
Cryptid word that implies yin and yang. Cryptid balance. Cryptic balance.
I mean...
We're just going to continue with this one?
Yeah.
It's fine.
I mean, what if it was just called no, there's definitely already something called The Wall.
Well, I mean, like there is like the Mesopotamia vibe to it, because it kind of isn't that kind of crescent between, what?
Yeah.
That's kind of the only place we've got left. Last strip?
I want to
don't know.
combine the words dual, like DUA, and then some other word that implies magical things.
Yeah, well, that was one thing I read about samurai.
That's definitely a thing.
Is a lot of samurai stuff was basically one-on-one dueling. Like there were a lot of battles where they would just challenge a single person in the army to fight them, and that sometimes decided the conflict, I guess.
Cryptidua.
But I don't know. This is a tough one to think of a name because I would want to do some more research to think of something clever.
Wall to wall.
Wall to wall, window to window.
To the wall. Yeah, let's just call it
window
to the wall.
Window to walls.
Between two walls.
Between two walls.
Yeah. Yeah.
Zach Galifianakis, eat your heart out.
Zach Galifianakis is working in the program.
He's the gunslinger.
Yes.
Honestly, it's going to be any character. Yeah, Zach Galifianakis being the gun character. So,
God.
yeah, great. We even got a big
Between
name
two
attached to
walls.
this.
Between two walls. I love it.
Right now, at least. If this is going to be an actual script, we would think of a better name. But our
Maybe.
joke name for the podcast is Between Two Walls. And hopefully this wasn't in bad taste. I really just do think samurai look cool as fuck. Like,
Yes.
and so nothing we said is probably actual representational of samurai culture and like where that comes from. But
We're just sitting
this
here
is a
making
cool
shit
story.
We got some things right, I'm sure.
We probably got some
Yeah.
things wrong, so we're sorry if anything we said is offensive, but
Build it better.
build it better.
Yeah. Yeah.
With that, I think that
I like
kind of
that.
wraps it up.
Build
I really
it
like
better.
this, and I really do think this was a little bit more of a world than like a story, especially because we like
We talked about it being episodes and things like that, so
Yeah.
that makes sense.
this would also be a pretty sick like you could turn this into a tabletop game. I think, and like all these characters are actually
Ooh, the
classes.
board would be so cool.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
But so anyone who wants to get on this, I actually really would love this to be a thing. So just make it. I
That's
don't know,
your
just
job
put,
now.
just put our names on it.
Or
I
consult
want
us
some credit.
for writing.
With that, I guess it's going to be the end of this week. Next week will be episode 10, which will be the last episode of season 1
Correct.
of Construction. So we'll have
Correct.
a few twists and turns and
Some surprises.
along the way for that episode.
Should
So
be a fun one.
Mhm.
be ready. Until next time, I am Anthony Wilkinson.
I'm Josh Robbins.
Linnea Andersson.
And what's our slogan?
Happy building.
Happy building.
Happy building.
Build.
Well, that's what we said.
Happy building.
Building.
Happy building.
There we go. And see.
Cut.